Okay, thank you all for coming, and I would also like to thank the BSA Council for inviting me to this panel. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here today. I'm a historian of early modern Korea, particularly working on the relation between written culture and socio-political changes. Today, however, I would like to begin my presentation with a short excerpt from Jane Austen's Emma. Let me just read it. I really must, in justice to Jane, apologize for her writing so short a letter. Only 2 pages, you see, hardly 2. And in general, she fills the whole paper and crosses half. My mother often wonders that I can make it out so well. She often says when the letter is first opened, "Well, Hattie, now I think you will be put to it to make out all that checker work." In this passage, Emma's aunt apologizes Emma for Jane Fairfax's letter, of which complex layout made reading it grueling, if not impossible. For us modern readers, however, simply reading this description does not easily allow us to imagine what this particular textual form looks like. This letter that Jane Austen sent to her sister Cassandra in 1808 exactly bears the textual form that she described in Emma, cross letters. When running out of writing space, Austen would turn the page sideways and continue writing at right angles. The resulting densely spaced writing is what is described as checkerwork in Emma, which had been popular in Anglophone letter writing practices until the introduction of uniform penny postage in 1840. In my own research on early modern Korean epistolary culture, I have also come across similarly complex letter forms bearing non-linear textual layouts, which I call spiral letters. This image is of a spiral letter produced in 1811 by a male elite, and it displays 360-degree spiral effect. In this form, both writers and readers engage it in textual movement. As you see, the letter writers indented the beginning of their message radically toward the lower left side of the paper. When the paper was filled to the lower left edge, they turned it counterclockwise by 90 degrees and continued to write in the left half of the upper margin. When that was filled, they again turned the paper counterclockwise by 90 degrees and continued to write in the right half of the upper margin. When the contents even filled up the right margin of the paper, the letter could be read from all 4 directions. This spiral movement in writing letters brought about the same bodily motion in reading them. These letters were written and read in enormous quantity. Moreover, these forms did not appear in other countries under the literary Chinese classical tradition, such as China or Japan. Unlike crossed letters that we just saw, there remains no contemporary records about why and how Korean letter writers produced and circulated spiral letters. Korean people did not even name them. In order to grapple with this kind of questions, the researchers could only rely on investigating the physical peculiarities of material text. The examination of physical forms of spiral letters suggests several possibilities for understanding the practices of reading and writing in early modern Korea. First, some scholars interpreted the form as an attempt to save paper by packing all the contents onto a single sheet. To save paper, however, it would have made more sense to begin to write from very upper right side while controlling character sizes and line spacing. Moreover, blank space frequently appears in the existing spiral letters. Most of all, a desire to save paper does not explain why letter writers ended up rotating the page by 360 degrees. Another possibility is that spiral letters were widespread as a popular letter form. Spiral forms frequently appear regardless of the gender and social status of letter writers and the language they use. However, some writers apply spiral forms and others did not, and those who favored spiral forms sometimes wrote letters without such effects. The decision to apply spiral effect does not seem to have been governed by the contents of letters either. Spiral letters cover a variety of subjects, including family affairs, academic debates, social issues, and political problems. In most cases, the division of textual parts through spiral letters does not correspond to the changes of subjects in the given letters. Remarkably, no spiral texts have been found among official documents. The absence of any apparent pattern and the usage only in private settings suggests that letter writers could have used spiral forms for diverse purposes of self-fashioning. Korean letter writers' sensitivity to the spatial layout of text gave rise to another unique letter form. By the 19th century, boomerang letters were being used among male letter writers. The writer began by indenting to the middle of the page and then left generous spacing between lines, as highlighted in red. Reaching the end of the page, he returned to the beginning and continued to write in between existing lines while radically indenting them from the top of the page, as highlighted in blue. This vernacular Korean letter shows a more complicated mechanism of writing and reading. The writer, in this case, applied the boomerang process one more time, which made the letter reading practice like cracking a secret code. When both spiral and boomerang effects appear on the same page, the writing and reading techniques become even more complex. In all cases that I have found so far, the spiral effect takes priority over the boomerang effect, as seen in this letter. The letter writers expected the addresses to follow this textual layout by common sense without any instructions. Therefore, writers and readers of this type of letters might confirm and reinforce their membership in the same textual community through their understanding of this complex layout of textual space. Third, given that letters were widely read in turn and in public, and that there was no technology to replicate text, spiral movement may have made the group reading of a single sheet easier and more efficient. The letters, divided into 4 parts heading in 4 different directions, could be read in serial order by a group of readers surrounding the given text and rotating it. It may also have been possible for group readers to move themselves around the text, just as the spectators in modern art galleries and museums shift view and artwork simultaneously. This image is not a spiral letter, but a game board of the late 19th century. However, it shows the same textual configuration, heading in 4 directions. People had to sit around the board to play, so we can assume that people might have surrounded and read the spiral letters in the same way. Art historians titled this 18th century painting The Appreciation of a Painting. But as you see, the paper held by a group of men who surround it is blank. These men could be appreciating a painting as the art historians suggest. However, they could also be examining a blank sheet of paper for future use or reading a text together, as I propose in the usage of spiral letters. Irrespective of what it really was for, this painting shows that there was a perception in this period that a group of people surrounded a single sheet of paper together for their shared project. Korean spiral letters resemble spiral text popular in Yemen. The Yemeni writers strove for calligraphic exquisiteness by applying spiral effects. Therefore, as the fourth possibility, the Korean letter writers may have been concerned about calligraphic aesthetics. However, spiral letters in Korea do not appear to have considered textual elegance. Some even continued on the back of the page. As you see, the doubling up of scripts written on front and back made letter reading strenuous, if not impossible, due to the sheerness of the paper. The doubling of unrelated lines from different textual parts in the same place apparently has nothing to do with the stylish refinement of writing. I have found many more women's letters written on the backs of pages than men's, and vernacular Korean letters addressed to women tended to continue to the back pages. In this way, the development of spiral letters was closely related to the gender of letter writers and recipients and their choices of linguistic modes between vernacular Korean and literary Chinese. In fact, full-fledged spiral letters began to appear in women's vernacular Korean letters exchanged in domestic settings since the late 15th century. Since vernacular Korean script was invented in 1443, male elites had disdained it as the female script, only using literary Chinese in correspondence among themselves. The ease for all social actors, regardless of their gender, social status, and generation, in learning and mastering vernacular Korean threatened the male elite culture, which was based upon literary Chinese tradition. Therefore, male elites discounted this effortless attainment of vernacular Korean literacy. In this context, I suggest that women letter writers might have devised a new textual technology to make their writings appear more sophisticated and complex visually, whatever the contents. The resulting elevated visual and spatial complexity of spiral letters dovetailed with the contemporary written culture dominated by male elites, which prized strenuous learning in the Confucian tradition. Male elite's exposure to these more complex writings prompted them to employ spiral forms in their literary Chinese letters. I would like to point out that my analysis of spiral letters was possible through investigating material text. Given that there are no contemporary records about the origins and usages of spiral letters, we cannot pursue this kind of intellectual inquiry if we rely solely on historical records. Close examination of physical text allows intellectual analysis and discourse that would not otherwise be possible. I try to read letter writers' engagement with the text through extracting meaningful information from traces of nonverbal practices and bodily movement. I would like to emphasize that my projects demonstrate how such strong bibliographical evidence could be accepted with a reasonable degree of certainty. Thank you.